Hello and welcome to Tilling It Like It Is, UGA Extensions in Southeast Georgia's newest source for local, unbiased, research-based information about Georgia's number one industry, agriculture. As always, my name is Blake Carter. I'm the one of the hosts for Tilling It Like It Is. So if you're new to the podcast, I'm the Effingham County A&R agent. And with me later in the show, we'll have my co-host Savannah Tanner, the Emmanuel County A&R agent, and we cannot be more thrilled for what this episode has this week because it combines a lot of mine and Savannah's favorite things, along with just this being this part of the year. It's all about Christmas and family, spending time together. So our episode today is really going to focus on that. And I'm super excited to have a special guest with us. Savannah and I love working with him as a coworker. He's also a wealth of knowledge when it comes to one of our topics for today, Vidalia sweet onions. So before we get to that point, I do want to do our What's Growing On segment, bring that back for this week and really focus it on that Christmas piece that I just mentioned. And when I was thinking about this and what's going on around us, we have a few local Christmas tree farms, and I know in other parts of our area in Southeast Georgia, we have others as well. So I wanted to kind of focus that on Christmas trees, right? So when I got to thinking about this, growing up, we didn't have a real tree. We had a fake tree, but that's okay. Not everybody does the real tree thing, but we did start having real trees since I took this job, and we have a local tree farm here in the county. Um, and so we've had a real tree a few times since then. And when it comes to real trees, obviously it's a different way to handle it than obviously a fake tree. So when it comes to picking the right Christmas tree, I want to start with that. Lay down some basics of what's going on when it comes to picking the tree. So this time, most people probably already have their trees, but we do have some traditions. Some family traditions will wait till the week of Christmas to go out and pick the perfect tree and then decorate it together. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're going out to the farm, if you haven't already been, um, there's a few things you need to think about. So first, where are you going to put the tree? Right. So a fake tree that we have in our house, it's a standard height every year because it's the same height. It's not going to change. With a real tree, you can have some variations in height. So just because it's the biggest and prettiest tree in the lot does not mean that it's actually the right one for you. Sometimes you might want to go for a 5 footer or right at 6 foot and not anything bigger than that, because you don't want to try to shove a Christmas tree into a place that it doesn't really fit. You also got to think about how you're going to decorate it and what your guests are going to see. So some other things to think about. You should also keep in mind that the added height from tree toppers will be taken into account when you're putting up the tree. Also, the stands, some stands add some height to your trees. So make sure you're aware of those things before you pick out the tree. Because once it's cut down, I mean, that's your tree. So now that you've got a tree, you've picked out the right one for your house. If you don't have a plan on taking it in right now, that's okay. You can actually put it in a shady place. In the meantime, we used our covered porch as a place to put our tree, put the stand out there, put the tree on it for the time being. It worked. Before placing the tree inside, though, inside its stand, make a cut about half inch above the original cut where it exposes a little bit of the fresh tissue. This will allow that tree to absorb water easier. All right. And you want to make sure this tree is constantly watered. There's a few reasons behind that. One, to just keep the tree going. It's not as brittle, but also to prevent fire. Um, Once your tree is in the stand, keep it hydrated. It's going to take a lot more water than you probably think about. So just keep that in mind. Like if you're thinking you're overwatering it, you're probably not, because that tree is going to suck up that water very quickly. Finally, you want to prevent any kind of accidents from happening. So to do this, place the tree away from space heaters. First of all, a space heater next to a Christmas tree is like setting yourself up for failure. So you don't want that to happen. You want to keep it away from fireplaces and wood stoves, which makes sense considering that one of the main ingredients in a fireplace and a wood stove is wood. And guess what? Christmas trees are wood. So electric lights, extension cords should be thoroughly checked for safety. And make sure you're turning them off. So if you're going to wrap it, don't leave the lights on. If you're going to leave for the house, make sure you unplug it, not just turn them off. Any kind of old frayed wires, broken sockets, loose connections, all those things can be a fire hazard. And a Christmas tree is a great place, a great way for that to just go up in flames very quickly. Um, so those are some of the basics when it comes to Christmas tree care and how to pick them out. I know it's a short little what's going on segment, but I felt like it was very timely. Um, but I do want to leave this segment on one note. So here's a joke for you. I got booed at a at our senior center for this joke, so I'm gonna try it here because guess what? Listeners can't boo me directly, so haha. So why can't Christmas trees sew? Because they always drop their needles. Am I right? Come on. That was good, right? That was good. That was a treat. Get it? Christmas treat. Anyway. So that was my our what's going on segment, and I'm super super excited to pass it on to Savannah for our main attraction of the episode. But before I do that, I do want to mention a few things of why Vidalias are good for me. So I'm not like Savannah. Savannah works in a Vidalia Union County, and I think that's a really cool opportunity. Not all agents get to do that. Um, I do not fall under the counties that produce Vidalia sweet onions. So I'm outside that zone. But I grew up in Glenville, Georgia, which you can fact check me all day long, but Vidalia sweet onions, that is the original home of the Vidalia sweet onions, is Glenville, Georgia. They used to be peddled to Vidalia and sold on the side of the road. Um, they were coined, I want to go get some of those sweet onions from Vidalia, hence the name Vidalia Sweet Onions. There's also why there's two onion festivals. We got the Vidalia and the Glenville Sweet Onion Festival. So it's a big deal where I'm from, Vidalia and Toombs County and Tattnall and Glenville. We are very, 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 very big on sweet onions around our parts. Um, Growing up, I even was the Vidalia Onion Prince at the Glenville Sweet Onion Prince, sorry, at the Glenville Sweet Onion Festival. So, onions are kind of in my blood. I grew up right down the road from GNR Farm, so I'm really excited to have this as our topic. And there's no better person to kind of introduce our guest and also to kind of talk through this would be Savannah and then our guest, Jason Edenfield. So I'm going to turn it over to Savannah and let her kind of get going. So Savannah, take it away.
We're going to get started with one of the crops that I enjoy, um, probably more than a lot of crops we deal with in extension. But when I started as an agent in Evans County, I was introduced pretty heavily to the world of Vidalia onions, and it's something that I've kind of stuck with. We do a lot of research in them, and I enjoy doing that research. Certainly, probably the most smelly crop that we do a lot of work in, but we certainly enjoy those. Just a few fun facts. Uh, Vidalia onions are grown in 20 counties. They are protected through a federal marketing order and state law. And so you'll hear us refer some today as a Georgia sweet onion instead of a Vidalia onion. Because of those marketing order and state laws, there are certain components that make a Vidalia onion a Vidalia onion. Um, and so we're going to talk to you a little bit if you decide that you want to grow some onions at home. Most likely your onions at home are going to be, we'll refer to those as Georgia sweet onions. But that being said, I have one of the Vidalia Onion team members with us, Jason Edenfield, who's the agent in Toombs County. And we're going to talk a little bit about onions, how to grow them for yourself, talk about what's currently going on in the Vidalia onion crop, and then what some producers should be looking forward to in the days to come, the weeks to come of growing that crop. But that being said, welcome, Jason. And if you want to start by giving us just an overall crop assessment for the year, that'd be great.
All right, thank you, Savannah. I'm glad to be with you today. Kind of overall crop assessment, we are pretty much, I would say, pretty much in the middle of our planting window. We are now currently, most growers are transplanting onions. Typically, we start that middle, first part of November. And for most of our commercial growers, we try to wrap that up somewhere right before Christmas. Now, with that being said, we had, of course, Hurricane Helene that came through, and we had some damage to some of our onion beds during that point in time. Some of those onion beds that were planted about a week to 10 days before the storm came through. They were very small, very tiny plants just coming up out of the ground, and they did not handle the storm very well. In some situations, we lost uh, uh, 70+% of some of those onions in those bed situations. So many of our growers did go back, replant some onion seed beds later. And so some of them are waiting for some of those plants to come off, get ready to plant. So that may push us a little further into our planting window that we like. Like I said, most of our major growers would like to be done by Christmas. But I would foresee this year, more than likely, we're going to still be planting coming into Christmas and maybe a few even coming into the new year, which we can do, and it doesn't really cause us any issues, but something that we, in a typical normal year, we try not to do.
So if I was a homeowner or I had a garden planted, and was gonna do a real small amount, obviously we may struggle getting them getting some transplants this year because a lot of our homeowners will get extra transplant from our bigger growers. But tell me a little bit about what maybe some of the ideal characteristics are that we look forward to planting if we were going to plant them in a garden situation.
Okay, so if we're looking at like a garden situation for your homeowner, let's say you go into your local farm supply store, and I remember from my days working in one when I was younger, we had a box sitting there with onion transplants in there. And what we want to look for is we want, of course, look for a healthy transplant, something about the size of a pencil, thickness wise, good, looks healthy. And from there, whether it's a yellow onion, a red onion, a white onion, we're going to probably want to, if we go into our farm supply store, we're probably going to want to start planting those if we're going to do it this year, probably as soon as we can. Of course, we want to try to pick a place that gets, good sunlight. We want to pick a place that is a well-drained soil. We don't want to go into a place that holds a lot of water. Typically we bed our onions. So if you've got a way to bed your onions, then of course that would be ideal. And then from there, we typically plant them about every 4 inches apart, up to about every 6 inches apart, and to give us some good ideal spacing. And then from that point in time, we're typically going to wait about 2 weeks, and then we're going to start our fertility program. We're going to do one fertility program probably for this year. And then really once we get into the new year, that's really when we're going to start ramping up our fertility program with the onions. And that's also really when we're going to start looking at, if we're going to spray for diseases, things like that. That's really when we'll start picking those up as well.
Um, so kind of swapping gears a little bit, when you say diseases, I think of some of the work that we do in the variety trial and even some of the center right research that we as county agents and Dr. Babesh Dutta have been doing lately. Um, Talk a little bit about maybe some varieties and for our growers specifically and how selecting those varieties really can impact your overall success for an onion crop.
Well, again, we want to make sure that we're getting some great varieties, and there are some great varieties out there. Really when it comes to our varieties, what you will kind of see is there are some difference in your flavor characteristics of your varieties. Now, again, if we put a variety in the right soil type, we use the right fertility program on it, particularly in our area that you and I are in, we can really make any of these onions sweet. As you know very well, we've taken some red onions and we've made them pretty mild and pretty sweet. So variety selection does matter in that. Now we can get some varieties, and if we put them in the wrong situation, maybe in soils that are a little heavier, so of course they're going to hold sulfur, they're going to hold some nutrients a little more. They may not drain quite as well. We do have some varieties. If you're not careful, you over fertilize, you do some things, you can make them uh, not the most tastiest onion that we'll ever have. But again, with variety selection, some of the things, if you go to a store and you were to find varieties, or they would have some varieties listed, just to name a few, I kind of went back and looked through some of our quote unquote, some of our sweeter or more flavorful varieties we've had in the last couple of years. And a couple of names that just kind of popped to the top is like Sweet Magnolia, Sweet Azalea, Plethora, Vidora, Makins, and there's many, many others out there. But those are just some that over the past handful of years have typically made their way towards the top of the list when it comes to flavor characteristics.
Okay. Now with those varieties, how do we see in onions specifically, do we see disease resistant, or do we quantify disease resistant in onion varieties like we do maybe to tomato varieties or other vegetable crops?
Yes and no. There are a handful of our older varieties that are out there that do seem to be a little bit more disease prone. One of the most popular varieties that's still grown in our area, very sweet variety, Century. That was a variety that we have used for many years. But it does tend to, if you're not careful with your disease management, you can run into disease issues with. Now, again, you can do some things to mitigate that. But again, it may not be one that I would particularly recommend for a homeowner. Again, because as a homeowner, if you're out there spraying, you're going to be very limited on what you can spray in your home garden versus one of my commercial growers who has several different chemical options out there to spray.
Okay. And whether it be for homeowners or our Vidalia onion producers, what are three of the most important management strategies that you see that are important to the overall success of an onion crop?
So a few that I was kind of thinking out, if I was going if I was gearing this more really towards a homeowner, probably the three I would kind of point out first would be fertility. Kind of understand what kind of soil type you have. Does it drain well? Does it not drain well? Do you only dig down a foot? Do you hit a clay layer? Or are you like some of my growers in my area where, they can dig down 6 feet, but we're still in sand or in a sandy loam. How does it drain? How does it hold nutrients? How does it hold moisture? Those things. And then on top of that, don't over fertilize. Again, especially if you're trying to grow a sweet onion, if we over fertilize, not only can we cause disease issues like Viridiflava, but we can also cause the onions to be not as flavorful as we like. So again, understanding our fertility, understanding our soil types, our pH, get a soil test, those things I think would be extremely important, whether you're a commercial grower or a homeowner backyard garden type grower. After that, I would probably say, and these two would probably kind of go hand in hand, managing your irrigation, and that will also in some ways manage your disease issues. Whether anytime I go, because I deal with so many vegetable crops, anytime I go to especially a homeowner's garden, one of the big issues I see is water issues, irrigation, irrigating way too much. And a lot of those irrigation issues also drive disease issues. And so understanding, what is the right amount of water, what's too much, what's too little, and especially for your soil type, and managing that properly. And then after that, I would say, kind of going back into that disease and weeds, dealing with disease and weeds, on a commercial end. Disease management is one of the major things that we deal with from the commercial aspect of Vidalia onion production. These growers are typically spraying about every 14 to 10 days for disease. There are several diseases out there that we battle, you know that very well. Some of them can be devastating to our crop. Things like center rot, things like botrytis neck rot, things like downy mildew. Some of those diseases can be devastating to our crop. So again, trying to do what we can to deal with those. And then weed control. For a commercial grower, our weed control is very simple. For a homeowner grower, your weed control is going to be, it's still simple, but it's probably not what you're going to want to hear. You'll probably be doing a lot of hand weed. And that's just another thing to keep in mind when it comes to that, especially from a home gardener point of view.
Well, and you talk about weed control. Well, I think that, not I think, but we know that whether it's weed, insect, disease, we know that all three of those, specifically in Vidalia onions, go hand in hand. So
They
if we're
do.
not managing weeds correctly, we may have an abundance of thrips that are feeding on our
Absolutely.
onions, and thrips, convey
Vector
all of these
diseases. Absolutely.
diseases. And so,
Absolutely, absolutely. And not only that, if you've got a ton of weed pressure in there, that means you may hold more moisture, which means a lot of your bacterial diseases, things like sour skin, things like Erwinia, things like that may come into play more. So again, just managing those things. Luckily for us, for the most part, our insect management is pretty simple. We really only do that once we get closer to harvest time because of the weather we grow in, and kind of the time of year that we grow in. Really the major insect we battle then is thrips. And honestly, probably for the home gardener, you probably won't really ever have to spray for insects. You maybe once with a general garden insecticide, but other than that, you probably won't have to spray for much insects.
all righty. Anything else?
Not that I can think of. Like I said, I agree with you. It's one of my favorite crops to work with. I've worked with it for 16 years. I've had the opportunity to talk to people not only throughout the state, home gardeners, small gardeners. I've had the opportunity to talk to people in different areas of the country. It's just always interesting to see different management strategies, different growing styles, different fertility programs. Like I said, there's several different ways to do it. Each grower has kind of their own method to the madness, and it's kind of always neat and interesting to work with the different growers with their management strategies and how they go about producing this wonderful crop.
Well, thank you, Jason. So, like you said, like we both said, Vidalia onions are my favorite crop, and we actually will hear from Chris Tyson, our area Vidalia onion agent, closer to harvest time. So just to give people an idea, we always start getting questions, pretty early in the year. When will our Vidalia onions be available for purchase from our for consumers?
Okay, so typically the way our season works, and Vidalia onions, if you really don't know, it's kind of, I hate to kind of say it this way, it's really a year-round crop. So typically right around Labor Day, we began planting seed beds, and those we'll plant the seeds in the beds. Like I said, we'll grow them up to about a pencil size plant, and we'll remove it and transplant them later in the field where they'll stay for the remainder of their growing life, their growing season. Typically, that process to get them from seed to that plant is about 8 to 10 weeks. And then, like I said, usually around November, we'll start transplanting and we'll try to finish up, let's just say traditionally by the end of December. They will grow from January through typically around the first middle part of April. Usually our pack date is usually somewhere around the first middle part of April. So usually somewhere around, the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, somewhere in that ballpark. Usually the growers will get together in March, the advisory panel, and we will get together and we will decide what the pack date is. Once that's been decided, that'll be released when the pack date will be. And usually it's somewhere around that time. And then you can start expecting to see Vidalia onions in your store from then up until really Labor Day again, depending on, product, if we ran into any issues, usually around August, end of August, 1st of September, we start running out of Vidalias. Those are when the last Vidalias get shipped. And then if you kind of think about it, we're right back to planting seed beds. So again, that's kind of our typical year. It really is a year-round crop, at least for the growers in a lot of ways, because they're either growing it, preparing to grow it, or selling it and shipping it out. Pretty much doing something with it pretty much year-round.
Good deal. Well, thank you for joining us today, Jason.
Well, thank you, Savannah. Glad to have you. Be with y'all.
Turn off record.
So I just want to really echo what Savannah said when it comes to how thankful we are for you to join us today, Jason. We thank you for sharing your expertise with our viewers and our listeners. And we're super excited to have you a part of the Southeast History team. And we look forward to having you back to share some more on the Vidalia onions as we go, and maybe even some more on vegetables. Jason's a fantastic resource for all of those topics. So before we wrap up, I do want to go over some of the upcoming events. If you haven't been to our blog, Savannah has done a fantastic job redesigning, telling it like it is, our blog page with all the resources we've mentioned throughout our presentations or our episodes, our guests have shared with us. So please go on there for all your information on the resources that go along with episodes. But also, we've added an upcoming events page or tab on our blog. So I'm about to go through a few of those things that we're going to see coming up. But if you go on there, you can see anything that's up to date. We try to update them at least monthly. So just keep your eyes on that, and we appreciate that. Appreciate y'all listening. But some upcoming events that are coming up. We do have 4-H and extension plant sales that are going on around the district. So those are throughout the month of December. If you don't see one in your local area, contact your local office, and we can see who else around our area is putting some of those on. But this is a great place for you to purchase fruit trees or plants, and your donations and your purchases will go directly back to our 4-H and extension programs. So we want to put that plug out. Watch for deadlines for disaster programs through Georgia Forestry Commission and FSA. Keep your eyes out throughout the month. And finally, on January 9th, we are having Raising Chicks in Your Backyard Flocks, which is an online Zoom opportunity. You can contact 678-377-4010 for the Zoom link, but it is free and anybody can access it. So please check that out if you're interested in raising some backyard poultry. Finally, from Savannah and myself and the rest of the Southeast District and Extension, we just want to say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hope you and your family have a great, safe holiday season. This will probably be our last episode until after the new year. So we just want to say thank you for a good, solid half year of listening and making this podcast what it is today. So thank you so much. We look forward to seeing y'all in the new year. We got a lot of good guests and topics lined up. So until then, just keep tilling it like it is, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.